I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Bert Kresicher and Tom Segura are best friends, and they keep trying to get each other better and better birthday presents. It's really ramping up. They're going to keep doing this until they hit $1 million, so it's gone from an e-bike to a jet ski to a private jet flight. So it was Bert Kresischer's birthday earlier this week. What did Tom Segura get him? Hitler's teacup. Segura paid $22,000 for Hitler's teacup. And apparently, when you want to buy such things, you have to pay cash. The life of Chris Farley is about to be a graphic novel. You thought I was going to say movie or perhaps Netflix show. Nope, graphic novel. This from the laugh button. Kevin Farley is Chris's brother, and he's working with the team on a new graphic novel titled Growing Up Farley, a Chris Farley story. The graphic novel will, quote, track the youthful adventures of Chris and Kevin, including their time at summer camp and at the sets of Arc Theater in their native Wisconsin, and their journey to famed improv institution, the Second City in Chicago. Let me know how that one is. Gabriel Iglesias spoke to the Last Laugh podcast. He was talking about hecklers, and he said, there's certain times that if you're doing a show, you want to keep a certain flow. You don't want to lose the momentum of the people laughing and having fun. The last thing you want to do is stop it and have to start over. That's why hecklers can ruin things. If you stop a set to address a heckler, then it's like, ugh. But when he was doing the show at Dodger Stadium, he saw a blimp overhead, and he thought, you know what? This will never happen again. Let me stop for a second. And he goes, I've been heckled. I've had things happen, but I've never been heckled by a blimp with my name and face on it. And everybody was like, yeah, I think I would stop my show, too, to acknowledge there's a blimp flying overhead. The Hollywood Reporter asked Mike Birbiglia, hey, Mike Birbiglia, did you ever have any interest in being more topical? Birbig said, certainly not now. When I was doing Kimmel in May, the leak came out about Roe v. Wade, and I was like, I can't possibly write a joke that meets this moment. I workshop jokes for years, never mind 2 hours. The times we're living in are so radical. I don't want to touch the majority of these things. As I've gotten older, I've really thought about what I'm contributing. How's this helping? I think what I can do is make something that is human and funny, but doesn't pull any punches. When he travels, he says, I end up talking to a lot of Trump supporters because they like to talk. There seems to be a big talking point in that universe about how comedians can't say anything anymore. I know what they mean, but I think that statement is incorrect. The big misstep in terms of the public relationship with art at the moment is that we have to agree with the artists. Comedians say wild stuff. They always have. Then they asked him about his desire to court a global audience. Birbig said, Eddie Izzard was so ahead of her time. She was playing Ukraine, Russia, Germany, and China 10 years ago. She told me, you got to go see the world. People everywhere love English-speaking comedy. In June, I went with this show to London, Iceland, and France. Part of the reason why I go is I want the show to be so human it could play everywhere. I try to rip out all American cultural references. Iceland is a funny example because I have all these jokes about how awful YMCA water is. Meanwhile, Iceland has the best water and public pools in the world. So at the top of the show, I'd be like, I talk a lot about going to the YMCA pool, which is kind of like a rec center in America. I know that your pools are really nice, but mine aren't. The water in Iceland is fantastic. All the locals there said if you buy bottled water in Iceland instead of just using tap water, you're a moron. And they were correct. Nate Bargatze is excited to play the Bridgestone Arena. He said it was built a little before he started comedy, but it's the big arena here in Nashville. And I remember when I first started, I dreamed of playing it. I don't know if it's like a goal, because it just seems impossible, but you definitely dream of playing it. I mean, 20 years ago, I was standing on a corner in New York City handing out flyers to get people to come into these shows. And you just kind of daydream as you were out there. So for it to be here is pretty wild. The people passing out flyers in Midtown Manhattan, I always felt so terrible for them. And I had this idea I never knew how to pull off without being a jerk, because like every day when I would leave SiriusXM, where I ran the comedy channels, in case you don't have my resume memorized, and somebody would stick a flyer under my nose and be like, do you like stand-up comedy? And what I kind of wanted to do was have, say, I don't know, Jeff Foxworthy or somebody on the phone as I approached the person and be like, I do, here, talk to Jeff Foxworthy, just to see how the person would react. But I didn't know how to do that without being a jerkhole, but there was a bit in there somewhere, undeveloped. Hey, Nate Bargatze, do you cater your sets to the venue? Had his headlining at a Zanies, that's a local club in Nashville, differ from the one at Bridgestone, that's a hockey arena in Nashville. Nate said, I've done some arenas. I haven't done one as big as Bridgestone, but I've done, minor league hockey arenas, stuff like that. They can be 3,000 seats or something, so it's definitely weird. It's just different. You're not going to try a bunch of new jokes. I think I'll move around a little bit more. I don't think I'll ever be someone that moves around a lot, but the Bridgestone stage is so open. You have so much more space. You feel like you have more freedom. So it'll be a new thing. I'm excited. That's what makes it fun, to figure out how to do a set in that big of a space. If you want to see the show, you've got some time. It's April 15th. HBO Max today, Lil Rel Howery, I Said It All, Y'all Thinking It. Returning to his hometown of Chicago for his second HBO special, Lil Rel Howery brings his signature storytelling style and spot-on impressions to the Chicago theater. Topics: fame, fatherhood, and therapy. Let's see who's at the New York Comedy Festival tonight, baby. If you've been listening all week, you know I'm very frustrated with their website, which does not have a grid, or does the main page tell you what time these shows are at? Really annoying web design. Again, please find out who the fourth best person at the Just for Laughs web team is, offer them $10,000 more than they currently make, and put them in charge of your website, New York Comedy Festival. Tonight at the Stand, spend the night with Stacey K and Megan Graves. Also at the Stand, brunch queen Carlisle Forrester. Apparently there's a venue in Brooklyn called Baby's All Right. I'm getting old. I don't know all these anymore. Daniel Ryan Spalding is playing there. At Stand Up New York, Race the Movie, The Play, The Table Read. Caveat has Apocalypse Soon with Eddie Pepitone. Comics to Watch is at Caroline's. Sunday Supper, Saturday edition. Well played. That's at the Stand. The Group Chat Stand-Up Comedy Show is at the New York Comedy Club in Gramercy. Brittany Carney, Union Hall. The Gimme a Break Comedy Show is at 169 Avenue A. Wow. Brooklyn Comedy Club presents Happy Hour at Old Man Hustle, Miss Pat's at Caroline's, Tracy Morgan at Town Hall, Mike Hanford and his funny friends at the Brooklyn Comedy Collective, Celebrity Memoir Book Club Live at Chelsea, Midnight Theater Comedy Takeover at Midnight Theater, Mo Amer at the BMCC Tribeca Performing Arts Center, Eddie Brills at Pangea, Jake Cornell at the Tiny Cupboard, Wanda Sykes at the Beacon, Sparkle Hour at the Brooklyn Comedy Collective, Fun Gutter at the Cobra Club, Karen and Jeff are in New York City, specifically at Littlefield. Melissa Villasenor, she's at the Bell House. Islamophoria, good title, that's at QED. Marcia Belsky at Club Cumming. Bill Maher at the Hulu Theater at Madison Square Garden. Dirty Laundry with Morgan Miller at the Stonewall. Funny People Comedy Showcase at the Brooklyn Comedy Club. Havana Club e Bacardi at Brooklyn Comedy Collective. The Adult Swim Smalls Huge Show at Caveat. The Michael Bevan Show at Club Cumming. And Shane Gillis at Town Hall. Not really big names for a Saturday night at the New York Comedy Festival. Am I missing something here, New York Comedy Festival? Usually there'd be somebody huge at, like, Carnegie. I'm going back here to the Hollywood Reporter article from a while back. John Mulaney, Conan O'Brien, a headline New York Comedy Festival. Tracy Morgan, Wanda Sykes, Jenny Slate, Bill Maher, and Joe Coy. Those are the big names that we dropped. Wow, I guess there's no, like, real big Saturday night Carnegie Hall show. That's surprising to me. I'm back on the main page, and I'm recording this on Wednesday, and they're highlighting Joe Coy at Madison Square Garden and Shane Gillis at Town Hall. No disrespect to Shane Gillis, but he's not in, like, the Seinfeld League. Wow. So when you compare this to the Netflix is a Joke Festival in L.A. earlier in the year, I mean, there's a ton of shows. I'm reading off tons of names, but most of those names mean nothing to you, right? Yeah, so I don't know what's going on with the New York Comedy Festival this year. Not feeling it. Let's leave on a laugh line from The Guardian, Rich Hall. If you're old, remember Rich Hall from Saturday Night Live? You're like, who's Rich Hall again? The Sniglets guy? Now, if you're like 40 or 50, you're like, oh, yeah, the Sniglets guy. He's been doing shows in the UK for years. I was up at the Montreal Comedy Festival. It's probably 10 years ago now. We were at a random show, and this guy got up, and he was pretty good. And I'm like, wait, that's Rich Hall from Saturday Night Live, the Sniglets guy. His current show is called Shot from Cannons. The Guardian asked what it's about, and he said the first half is Grandpa throwing slippers at the TV. Angry American British-centric rants. It's an attempt to explain to Brits that they don't really have any problems compared with what's going on in America. This is pantomime. America's on the edge of the apocalypse. Britain is this ongoing shuffling of weird, ghoulish political figures who are around for a while, and then next, they move on and somebody else comes out on stage. The second half of the show is very improvisational and very musical. It's my favorite part, and it's way more interactive with the audience. They asked him, can you recall a gig so bad that it's now funny? Rich Hall said, I was performing in Las Vegas and haphazardly walked up on stage and said, what's with all the recreational vehicles in the parking lot? What's with all these Winnebagos? Who would pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to live like the homeless? People got up and walked out. I just kept making fun of the RVs, and then I realized it was an RV owners convention. I reached the point some comedians experience where you just get this feeling of vindication by seeing how many people you can lose during a show. I cleared out about 2/3 of the room by the end, and they asked him, what's the best heckle he ever heard? And this is pretty good. This show is so bad, I want everybody's money back. And that's your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, audio-only version on YouTube. See you tomorrow.